Hosting the Author Studio, the Edina Arts Center is a jewel in leafy Roslyn Park in the city of Edina. It showcases the Peggy Kelly Media Art Studios, the Margaret Foss Gallery, and the Clark Gift Shop. We have a full-service media transfer department where our staff is close enough to keep your projects simple. Our gallery offers many shows throughout the year, including our annual Members Juried Show in the fall. The center serves over 5,000 students and guests each year and offers classes in painting, drawing, jewelry, photography, writing, and many more. Our pottery department features 15 different kilns, and we're known as the biggest little pottery department in Minnesota. At the Edina Arts Center, we live up to our slogan of, "Every day, I need art." Now sit back and enjoy this episode of the Author Studio, hosted by Colin Nelson. Good morning. Welcome to the Author Studio here at the Edina Arts Center. Thank you for coming. My name is Colin Nelson. I am also an author, and my new book, Flashover, was just published 2 weeks ago. So I'm very happy about that. I would welcome you to the Edina Arts Center and encourage you to take a look at the schedule that has been placed on your chair. We offer a number of classes, opportunities for artistic expression in many different ways. You do not have to be an Edina resident to participate in these activities or to join the Arts Center, so we welcome you to take a look at that. Also, we have a wonderful gift shop here, so if you're interested in supporting local artists, you're going to find some of the best artwork in the Twin Cities here in the art shop. I'd also like to thank Michael, Don, and Phil for their help and technical support for this program. It's extremely helpful, and we couldn't do it without them. Today we have an interesting children's book called Rags to Riches. The authors are Carey Pearson.
Hello.
And Patti Kivestu. Now this book won the Mom's Choice Awards. And we also have the illustrator, Sarah Thornton. We're going to talk to Sarah and have her do some work on the easel there about halfway through the program. But I'd like to start by asking you two, here you are, intelligent adults. Why did you write a children's book?
Well, I think it probably starts with me, and the reason is sitting in my lap right here. Rags is a rescue dog, and the gist of the story is that she was found wandering the West Texas oil fields. My daughter was in school at Texas Christian University at the time, and her boyfriend at the time was doing a summer internship. And he kept happening upon this little dog at one of the oil rigs that he was tending to, and she would come about, disappear, come about, disappear. And he finally lured her in with a little piece of Kraft Singles cheese and brought her back to Fort Worth. But
Doesn't everyone love Kraft Singles?
But it took a little bit of patience for him to woo her. And I think that's what we have found about Rags, is that her story needed to be told, not only that she's a little dog and how did she ever survive in that inhospitable environment, but that she was willing to take a risk on a human being, and we felt what she was really looking for was a friend. So my daughter and I talked about writing a book. She was too busy. I asked Patti, and the two of us sat down and we did it.
It was really fun. It was very collaborative. We've been best friends for a long time, lived across the street from each other in country club. I was introduced to Rags early in the game, and when Colleen decided she didn't want to write a book, and my background is as a writer, and Carey also writes beautifully. It was so much fun to sit down together and imagine the adventures of this little dog before she made contact with a human being. And so the beginning of the book is really what we imagined her life to be like on the West Texas prairie as she was trying to contact somebody, trying to find fellowship. And we always said it's really the story of a little lost creature who's looking for pure friendship, and much like the story of our friendship too, connecting was a really important part of the book. I think children and adults relate to that part of the story.
Your motivation was more than just the story of a dog, though, wasn't it?
Well, it started out as a story of Rags. I mean, Carey was totally head over heels with Rags, and she gets under everybody's skin. She's the center of every party. But the motivation, it came out of our friendship too, and doing something together. But it was...
And also just the importance of that one person in your life. I mean, that's obvious from the story, but also the whole rescue dog. We just wanted to let people know that so much good can come from not only being saved, like she was, but also from saving another individual. My daughter was struggling a little bit at the time that she was in school, and that pairing of those two, a dog and a person, just kind of brought them both back to life and kind of saved them both. So, I mean, I think that's one of the stories we want to get across.
Yeah, and one of the things I took out of the book was this is a disenfranchised animal, and yet you're appealing to disenfranchised children, aren't you?
Well, that's part of it. I think it definitely does resonate with children who maybe feel alienated. Maybe, maybe they have, it could be an economic thing, it could be a learning disability. I mean, the wonderful thing about Rags, she's a beautiful little dog, but she's really more beautiful inside than out. She has a snaggle tooth, she's missing a little piece of her ear, but it's what comes from inside. And so I think that, to Carey and I, we thought that Rags is so lovable. She brings this something out in people. And the book is not only for the disenfranchised. I mean, most of my friends love it too. Anybody who's a dog lover responds. So I think it works on different levels for different people. And I think the best children's books, and truly the most interesting books, do. It's not a limited audience.
And I think we found that not really in the initial telling of the tale. The initial telling of the tale was just that Rags is one of those dogs that just gets under your skin. You want her to love you. And it takes her a while to love you. And once she does, you just feel like you've accomplished so much.
Yes.
And so that's, for me, was the reason for telling this story, is that once you've found that way to kind of have her affection, it's just so meaningful. But what we found in reading this book to young people, going into schools and going into many different types of schools, is that it had that connection with kids from many different backgrounds. But we've found a real niche, as you mentioned, with the underserved. And Rags has had the occasion to be a part of some summer learning programs where they actually develop curriculum around the story of Rags to Riches.
Wow.
And as a result, the students sent emails to Rags. Rags has her own Facebook.
Right, and letters, and drew portraits of Rags, and portraits of Carey and I.
And hearing them, confess their thoughts and their worries and their what they
Their
experienced, their hearts, to her, and having us respond as Rags, just kind of was so touching
Oh, it's
to both
inspiring.
of us.
And
it's inspiring,
very
yeah.
rewarding. And again, as far as other children, these are unintentional things that came out of writing this book for Carey and I, is we realized when we were discussing the little creatures at the beginning of the book that Rags meets in her journey, that there were some very strong themes of bullying, of cliques, of feeling alone and isolated and looking for a safe place. These all make wonderful writing opportunities in the classroom for children, and a way to sort of have them open up some of their feelings about this. So that was an added bonus as well for us.
How does it work? I mean, I have a tough enough time writing alone, one person. Tell us about how you collaborated, the two. Does someone come up with the idea first, or do you jointly? Tell us how that
It was tag
works.
team writing. It was the two of us sitting down.
I mean, we knew the end of Rags' story. Everything from once she meets Jake at the oil field, that part's true. I mean, we just knew how that would unfold. The question was, how would we deal with her getting to that point? And as Patti said, it really was collaborative. We did our research, we found out what West Texas was like, we realized that we wanted her to have a number of encounters with different types of critters because we thought it would be visually appealing to children. And then what would those little creatures, what would their little nuance be, and how would we portray it on a page? Because in doing this, it's not only the language, it's also how it looks.
We were really concerned with that. And, you know, as somebody who loves language, the way it rolls off the tip of your tongue, children's literature especially is meant to be read aloud. And anybody who has sat there and read to their children knows how important expression is, and alliteration, and onomatopoeia. It makes it fun. So when Carey and I sat down together, her with her hot chocolate, and me with my coffee, every day we'd be sitting at the computer and we'd just test things out on each other. But we always, always read it aloud, and we read it out loud because we wanted to hear how it would sound. And there were some funny episodes, like in one place we have the young man, Jake, who finds her in the oil fields. He's caterwauling in his truck, and our editor said to Carey and I,
What
you
was that-
can't,
what
you
was that
can't
word?"
use the word caterwauling. And we said, we love the sound of caterwauling. We don't want to dumb this
It's a
down.
wonderful word.
And from the context of the illustration and the story, everyone's going to know what caterwauling is.
And if they don't beforehand, they will,
They will
afterwards. And we made sure that it was the type of book that we love to read to our children. We were looking for that classic feel. We wanted something that wasn't gimmicky. I mean, it was a true story, so it really
Right.
couldn't be gimmicky. And we wanted that classic children's look to
And I
it,
think
too.
this is a good time to talk a little bit about our illustrator, because first of all, for Carey and I, before we sat down to write this, we spoke to each other about our favorite children's books and why we liked them.
We spent a lot of time at libraries.
Right, and you know,
Rereading
whether it was Make Way for Ducklings or yours was,
Oh, there were just way
too many to, but what we wanted is in this to make it, the themes to be universal and the appearance to stand the test of time. And so we really pictured these washed out pastels that are what you see in the prairie. And then it was amazing because Sarah was so good at translating our narrative and our vision for the book into just beautiful illustrations, which could not have been any more on cue. So
Did you literally sit by each other, and just like now, you're talking back and
I have a
forth? Is that
round
what you
kitchen
did?
table, and we would we pretty much always did it at my,
well, we had Rags there as
Yeah.
inspiration.
so we had Rags there, and we'd sit at my kitchen table, we'd have a computer, because I think we both felt that we worked better, even though we're not didn't start as the computer generation, I worked better on the computer and editing off of a computer. So
I think we've all grown used to that because that's the way of
we
the
would
world
throw
is.
something down on the computer, we would read it out loud, we'd read it out loud with whatever, we'd always start from the beginning and read everything from the beginning to the point that we had, just to see how it would flow. And then we would tinker with words and pull, add, try to find something that maybe flowed a little bit more easily off the tongue, and then, always realizing, sorry, Rags, that you would be reading this out loud, that this was not a silent read.
It was
Let's-
definitely, first and foremost, the fact that it was going to be read aloud to children.
Look, why don't you read it? Why don't you read a couple pages? We can hear the things you're talking about.
Okay, folks, I'm going to need to get my readers. I think what I'll do is I'm just going to read the beginning, And again, this is just how it starts and the introduction of her first little creature. This story begins with a little dog, a very little dog with hopeful brown eyes and a snaggle-toothed smile. Her name was Rags, and she was lost and alone in the vast oil fields of West Texas. Rags was hot, and hungry, very hungry, and thirsty, don't forget thirsty. But mostly, Rags was lonely. Rags wanted a friend. After one very long day, the moon hung low in the cool of the night, and Rags sat alone, all alone, shivering in the shadows of the desert scrub. That's when she saw it, a peculiar little critter hanging upside down from the branch of a scraggly old sage. Could this be a friend, she thought? It had nice ears, a little button nose, and there was something oh so charming about its toothy smile. Gathering her courage, Rags inched closer for a better look, but with the beat of the wing, the little bat took flight, disappearing into the deep of the night, leaving Rags alone, all alone.
Oh, no. That's nice. It must be difficult, even though both of you are parents and both of you are parents and you read to your children, it must be difficult as an adult author to know what is going to hook a child or interest a child, keep their interest through the book. How did you do that?
I don't recall that we really ever thought of that.
We're all children at heart.
You know you're brilliant.
I know. No, we wanted to tell this story in kind of a heartfelt, but also literary way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
Right.
what we wanted to do.
And I do think I think why this book strikes a lot of people is because we're all children at heart. We remember times when we tried to make friends and somebody didn't want to be our friend, or we felt lonely and we wanted to just go to the safe place where we could be by ourselves and gather our thoughts and our courage. I think all of those things, all adults have this feeling at times, and so do children. And it has a happy ending.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love a happy ending?
And honestly, I mean, most of the people that we interface with are adults because they're buying the book for their child or their
Right.
grandchild or their students at a school. And when they read the book, it tugs at something that they've experienced. And I think for us, you also have to realize that you have to reach that adult market, because if the adults don't like it, they're not going to buy it. You have no
Right.
hope of the children liking
Right.
it. And so I think if we figure that if they're weeping at that part in the story, the chances are that child's going to like it too. And I think the kids probably relate more to Rags and, just her face and the characters in the story, whereas the adults that read it, they kind of remember that. As Patti said, they remember that feeling of, if I just had one really good friend, I'm just feeling alone, I just need that one really good friend.
But again, we didn't set off thinking that we were going to write something. We just that was going to appeal to adults who'd buy it for children. We just wanted to tell a story in the most engaging way with universal themes and beautiful classic illustrations. And then the rest just fell into place. We did know that when we cried every time we got to the end of the story, that it was probably a good sign. So,
Yeah, the last and true test was we didn't let my daughter Colleen read it, or we didn't read it to her until we were pretty much ready to take it to the publisher, and we read it, and she gave us the thumbs up. And
yeah.
I mean, it's really her story, so we wanted to do that justice too, and we just wanted to make sure that she was okay with how it was.
With all the passion you have about the story, did you ever think about writing it as an adult book?
No, we didn't.
We set off to write a children's book. We wanted to illustrate it, and it could probably have been an adult book, but that was never our objective. So, and I think both of us at different points in our lives had been told, you should write a children's book for whatever reasons, for different reasons, and it just seemed like a fun thing to do. Also, writing a children's book and tag teaming it the way we did was probably far easier than
Than writing a
writing
novel.
Yeah.
a longer nonfiction book.
When you told me that the process of doing this for you as individuals, you've kind of reinvented your life, or it's a different chapter, a different process. Tell us about that.
Absolutely.
Well, my background is I'm a psychologist, but stopped working, kind of did the phase-out phase, working full-time and then consulting, and then finally just gave it over to raising children, and always kind of thought, well, what's going to be phase 2 for me? And when this came along, it was just the right time. I think I wanted an avocation and not a vocation. I wanted something that would, stimulate me, but not, be a 40-hour week. And this was perfect. And it was something that it met all of my needs. It was challenging mentally. We had to learn everything about the publishing business. We had to learn everything about illustrating, about all of that, and then marketing. We were our own marketers, and
It really was a journey.
It was a journey that just really fit at the right point in my life.
Good.
And for me, it's a similar story. I'm a writer and editor, and I had worked for national publications, which seems like another lifetime ago, but continued to do volunteer writing and writing coaching. But I had never written anything that was, say, a creative piece. And so when Carey approached me, I thought, it sounds like fun, why not? And I think it's great because this is kind of a story of two friendships. It's the story of Rags and Colleen, and it's the story of Carey and I, two women of a certain age who had raised their children, who sort of set off an adventure of their own. And it worked. It was fun. It was a way of thinking and doing things that we hadn't done before. And as Carey said, and it's so true, it was way more than writing. The writing was the fun and easy part. But once we got into how do we market this, and then we made it an ebook, and learning about the ins and outs of that, we were total novices. So, that was a big learning curve.
Let's introduce Sarah Thornton, who is the illustrator for the book. Sarah, before we're going to try a little exercise with the audience. Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, hey, my name is Sarah Thornton. I'm a professional artist. I have a studio in the Northrop King building in Northeast Minneapolis, and I also work and teach at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. I teach drawing mostly, but oil painting is my background. But for this book, we focused on colored pencil drawings because we wanted a certain aesthetic to really capture Rags' story.
Tell us how did you three of you meet?
I was at the St. Paul Art Crawl, and I had pieces up. I focus on dogs a lot in my artwork, and Patti found me and actually purchased a piece of artwork for Carey, and this was before the book was even, I think, in development.
Right.
And then they kept me in mind for being an illustrator.
Wonderful. Let's try an exercise that might be kind of fun. How about anyone from the audience name an animal, and then we're going to ask Sarah to show you how she would interpret that in an illustration. So, black squirrel. Black squirrel.
Black squirrel, all right. Let's have a scenario. What is this squirrel going to be doing?
Looking for nuts. Attacking a bird feeder.
Right.
I like it. We all know squirrels attack bird feeders. So I'm just going to set the scene. I'm going to get a marker that has a little more juice in it. All right, so we're going to set the scene for, and we try to protect our bird feeders. It's always a futile effort, but
Right.
we got all this seed up here. And let's see, the squirrel probably has a little bit of a launching pad with a tree coming in just ever so slightly. We got a trajectory here. He's eyeballing it. And let's see, let's place him here. This is him looking. He wants this. This is what he wants. And this is how he's going to get there. We're going to launch him. We're going to launch him. He's up in the air. We got the tail just all the way back here. And hopefully for him, we get a deflection. But
Little devil never missed.
No, they don't. How about another animal?
anybody, another animal?
How about a Bernese mountain dog?
Ooh. Going to my specialty here.
Her sweet spot.
Wheelhouse.
And what will this Bernese Mountain Dog be doing?
Begging for a treat.
Oh, we all know that too. Another scenario. All right, so I'm going to put treats up on a high table. Bernese Mountain Dogs are quite large, so we got the dog treats here. Oop, that's a bone. And okay, he's going to be giving these treats an eye. Again, when I make children's books, eye contact is very important because that's how children follow the story. So a lot of times when I'm sketching out children's books, I will make sure that there's a connection there. So we're going to make this Bernese Mountain Dog, his nose is going to be right pointing there. His eyes are going to be looking right at those treats. And we're going to put a little bit of a smile on him because he knows what's going to be coming when those treats get to him. And we're going to put a big body. They got these big tails. And just setting him down there. So that's just an early sketch. We'd put more in.
Great. Let's talk about, would you two maybe pick a particular scene from your book? And let's start through the process of you coming up with the idea, collaborating, and working with Sarah. And then Sarah, as they're telling you their vision or their idea, would you illustrate it? Thank you.
Nobody has to do a cartwheel in between or anything.
Right?
I think the interesting part was we knew that Sarah was superb at dog portraits. We didn't know how she'd be with a narrative because she hadn't done a children's book at that point in time. Now she's an expert. She's done more than one. But we gave her, the first scene that Carey and I gave her was the idea of Rags encountering the bat. And we just told her how we wanted it to look and how we just had this vision of Rags looking nose to nose with the bat, and we just let her go. We didn't give her the whole book, we just gave her what I read earlier, that short paragraph. And we were floored.
And when I was developing the idea for when Rags was interacting with the animals, like I said before, children will follow the way that the characters are looking and really focusing in on this connection between these two animals. So that's why this deep circle is between them, radiating out. And I kept it very simple. It's nighttime, there's the moon, it's dark, and then they're connecting.
The other thing, I'm sorry,
Go
the other
ahead.
thing that you need to realize and that we always needed to think of is that we had decided how we wanted the book to look. It was going to be a landscape book and not in portrait form. So we knew that dialogue was going to take up X amount of space on a page. We didn't know what that would look like, but we knew that. So we always had to keep in mind, okay, we know we want the picture of Ragsy and the bat, but there's going to be another page there, then what will that look like? So we also wanted the children to be able to see, well, yeah, the bat did take flight, and Rags did feel bad and how do you accomplish that all across a 2-page span? I mean, it's a lot of information that you're trying to convey in very few pictures.
And it was so well done because when you look at the little pictures where the text is, just the sense of longing and disappointment. And just that one picture of Rags watching that little bat take flight.
Sarah, tell us more about, particularly with children. Now you said something about the visual. How about colors, movement? What do you think about when you're illustrating?
Well, with the colors for this book, I sat back and thought about what a desert feels like, there's the vastness of it, the subtle colors that are there, unless you get that rain and then it just explodes. But we really wanted to bring in colors that brought out that feeling of vastness and the dust that's there. And so having those colors throughout the book really ties each illustration together to show the children that this is a progression. So here's the illustration with there was probably a rain event, and we got some bright colors in there.
So Patti and Carey would tell you, we want a landscape of the Southwest.
Yes.
Then what would you do? Would you draw up the full picture, color, send it back to them?
What we did is we drew out drafts with pencil, with graphite, to have the layout. I did some sample drawings where we decided that the color was where we wanted it to be, but I didn't do final drawings with color until we actually did the finals.
Okay.
And when you mentioned the narrative, how to capture that on one page, in the text there's multiple things happening at once, but you only get one image. It's a static image. It's not a television show or a movie. So in this scene, Rags is walking along a road, a highway, and she's spinning with this dust devil. And so being able to show, almost like a comic strip, her movement throughout, and then she takes a nap.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was something that Rags actually does. When she's really excited, she spins for people, that she really cares about her other dogs. So there were other little things about the book that we tried to incorporate her personality into it. So one of the things I thought early on, before we even, just in kind of contemplating this book, was, okay, this is where it takes place. I wonder how Rags learned to spin. And we didn't know about her early on, so we thought, okay, well, of course a dust devil. She'd have to encounter one of those little swirly things out there, and that's who taught her to spin, instead of the fact that Boston Terriers just tend to spin anyway. We wanted to give her life lessons that she learned along the way.
And it was something playful. There's a lot that's very real in the book, even though this is all imaginative conjecture at the beginning of the book, because we didn't have a video of Rags in the West Texas desert. But for instance, she does love craft singles, and I think we've mentioned that, and she will get up on her hind legs to take the craft single. She doesn't beg, she stands on her tippy toes. And so that's in the portion of the book where she first meets Jake and he offers her this tasty treat. It's what she really does. And by the way, the editor at the publishing company once again said, I don't think she stands on her tippy toes like that. You mean she begged? And we said, no, she stands on her tippy toes.
She did it for the treat out in the lobby this morning, too.
So what are you showing us there, Sarah?
Well, this is a couple of pictures that are related. This is after Jake, this young man, finds Rags and befriends her with the cheese and brings her back into the city in his old pickup truck. And this is the caterwauling that we were talking about. This is the illustration showing him doing that with Rags next to him on the seat. And then to juxtapose that with her, we flip the way that the truck is moving. We're looking into the truck from Rags' perspective, and now we're in this vibrant city.
But you can also see color-wise what we really wanted to accomplish, that kind of vintage, Old West, that kind of like 1950s Texas, those colors that just are so typical of that.
And if you've ever been to Fort Worth and driven through Sundance Square, they are old buildings, and they have recreated the old colors, and that's exactly what it looks like.
Sarah, you mentioned earlier some of the copy had several different images in it. How did you pick a particular static image out of the copy?
That's a really good question. I wanted to capture the essence of the page, really get to the action, to keep the viewer engaged and to really move them through the story. So if on the page, in the text, it's an introduction to what's about to happen, I would really capture that major moment in the text.
Here's a good example of that, is the road where she encounters the roadrunner.
And a rattlesnake.
So we wanted the roadrunner, or Sarah, you should talk about this. And we wanted the
this
roadrunner to be in there and the snake, but how do you accomplish that?
You can hold it, Patty, that'd be great. Well, in this text, there's a mention of a forlorn whistle of a railroad, so I have that just as a little side note. But the real action is this roadrunner coming in, and then again, like with the dog spinning with the dust devil, it's about kind of sequences of time. I didn't show the violence of the roadrunner actually attacking the snake. He's just running off with a little bit of a tail flying behind him. But the roadrunner coming in, being center of attention, and then leaving with the snake.
How do you determine placement of where the copy's going to go on the illustration? Because many of these pages are different. The copy runs along the bottom, or it's like in this one, it's on one page only.
Working with the publisher and understanding how large the text block was, a lot of times I would cut out a piece of paper that would be representative of what the text would look like, and just be able to place that on the page while I'm working. Because you do need room for the text to show up. It does have to be visible, but the illustrations really do have to work with it.
It's kind of a mathematical equation. The page has to be a certain size, the font is a certain size, the picture can be a certain size, you have to have bleeding edges, edges that has to stay white in order to bind it. So Sarah was amazing at that. We just gave her the information, and Patty and I were like, math? Haven't done that since fourth grade, just like.
You never consider what goes into the actual illustration. There was also a designer involved in this book who worked with us on the type of font that Carey and I chose. And then he told us that the illustrator had to be aware of how the script was on the page and what the parameters of the page were. And we were kind of wondering how that was going to work. There was no learning curve on that for Sarah. She did it the first time out. She wasn't only an art major, she was a biology major so she had the right brain, left brain thing going. So it really was way more technical than you realize in terms of presenting it to a publisher to be printed.
Go ahead, Sarah. You were going to say something?
Oh,
no. Let's talk about that for a minute. What did you bring to the publisher? How do you do that? Do you have the illustrations and the copy separate, or had you thought about how you were going to organize them on the page before you got to the publisher?
Well, we started just by providing them with the text, the
Okay.
story. And then they had to either accept or reject our story, and then work with us on the story, do the editing piece.
There wasn't much editing.
They wanted to do a lot more editing than we would
They
allow. Let's
wanted
put
us
it
to
that way.
take out the larger words, but we stood our ground. I think that, we presented the text first. They wanted to give us an illustrator. They wanted to choose an illustrator, and we said, oh no, we really have an illustrator. We've already given her a test run. We know she's going to be phenomenal. We know we can work with her. And then she did the back pages, not only for us, but when we had to take it to the publisher to prove that she was capable, more than capable of doing this. So that was it. Really.
And then it was just meetings between Sarah and Hattie and myself and the designer. Just, okay, these pictures, this sketch looks great. We may need to move it a little here. Let's, we may want to add something to the left or to the right, and then it was just kind of trying to figure out.
It was really, it was a corporate effort on that part. I think what's interesting with the illustration is we had a different cover initially. And the cover was of Rags looking out over the desert and in her forlorn state. But when we looked at it, I mean, my first reaction was, Rags has got such an endearing face. And we decided then we were going to scrap that illustration and have this spunky little dog looking right out and connecting with her potential
That's a great
audience.
idea.
To have that face looking at you, it's kind of like, if we can't resist that face, hopefully no one else will either. So we changed, we did make changes.
How long did the process take? From when you two met and decided to do the project to getting it published?
18 months?
Yeah. We didn't do it every single day, too. Maybe 3 days a week we sat down and did this. It wasn't like we were, in a garret every day for 19 hours. It was
It just felt that way.
totally fun. Well, it didn't feel that way for me.
No.
But it was totally fun. I would highly recommend it. And writing stories is one of the things when we go to classes, and Sarah often comes with us too and does this illustration for the small children, is getting them to write their stories and empowering them that everybody's got a story to tell. What's the story you want to tell about your pet or your best friend? And if you don't want to do it alone, do it with a friend.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect.
Do we have any questions? Richard?
Yeah, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the process, because, it's almost like this early part of the story, you didn't know what happened. Did the dog have an owner? Was she trained? Was she not? And so, did Sarah, and you picked some animals, so did Sarah kind of lead the idea there? Well, because she just when I said squirrel, she said, well, tell me more about the squirrel. So I'm sure she did the same thing with you guys.
So, Richard, your question is, how did the process work? Did Sarah lead the story, or Carey and
At the
Patti?
beginning, we did our research. It was strictly through sitting on the computer and going to state park sites, going to Wikipedia sites. I mean, anything that would tell us about what we would find in that particular area, what animal we would find in
Who
that
the
particular area.
inhabitants of that locale
So
were.
you had the idea that the dog would engage with
Yes,
various animals
yes.
in her environment.
Yeah.
And so we had the idea, and the brilliant part for Sarah was that she translated. We had the story, and just like she asked you, well, what would that dog be doing? What would the squirrel be doing? We provided what was happening. And at times we'd say we kind of picture it this way, but she would always far improve on what we were imagining. But the text led the illustration.
So basically, we came up with a list of animals that we wanted to encounter along the way, had to sort through in what order she would encounter them, threw some out. What would she learn kind of in the back of our minds, what would be the most interesting thing for a child to encounter along with her when she was meeting these animals? With the prairie dog, she meets 2 prairie dogs, and it was fun because she met one, and then it was a chance for us to kind of introduce the little Spanish with the adios, but then there's another one, so.
And then 3 was a crowd, and poor Rags is the one left out.
And then there are all these llama
Do you
farms.
have a toad in there, a horny toad?
No, we did not
No,
have a
we
horned
didn't
toad.
have a horned toad. That would have been a good addition. We thought about a horned toad. We
Yeah.
thought about a lot of things. but
Armadillos,
We had to
horned
cut. We had to cut. One of the things that Carey and I did do is the creatures that she tried to befriend. There was always something about them. We didn't really develop this that looked like
Like rags.
rags, like the bat has an underbite and those big eyes, and the llama has those huge eyelashes.
And the prairie dogs sit up like she does. So
Right,
we
so there
picked
was
animals that
always
were
something-
something alike with her.
So that was part of the story. Is this a picture of total relaxation? This is a star accustomed to the public eye.
Told
Do
you.
you have any idea how old she might be?
When Colleen took her she and Jake took her to the vet, they assumed that she was approximately 2 years old. She'd already had a litter of puppies, and that was basically, they knew that something not so good had happened because at that point she was already missing a canine tooth. She'd had a piece that had been bitten out of her ear, and she was kind of in rough shape when they found her. So we didn't want to dwell on that part, but that's the part that makes this story so amazing, is that when you see her standing here later when she comes to greet you, she is a really little dog. And how she managed it out there on her own is what we try to impart upon everybody who reads this story. If she can do it, you can do it.
It's
I
a
mean,
story of perseverance, really, that she kept going, and
what's your dream? Go for it. Just one foot after another. You know, whether the pavement's too hot or you encounter a silly road runner or some llama spits in your face, it doesn't matter. You know, you just have to keep on going. So that's...
well, the road runner actually saved her from being struck by the rattlesnake. She didn't want to be Rags's friend, but that's something that happens in life too. There are times you will encounter somebody who'll be very helpful to you, but they're not necessarily giving you the warm companionship that you're hoping for.
Well, she seems to be giving you warm.
Yeah, by default, if my daughter were here, she would not be on my lap, let me tell you that. She would be all about
She'd be
Colleen.
spinning if Colleen walked in.
Naomi, did you have a question?
I have a question. Did you think of making up a story about what animal perhaps bit her ear or how that?
No, we just wanted to concentrate on the positive piece of,
Because that would
and I think that what we wanted to relate to everybody was that her imperfections, and that, as Patti said earlier, it's not about what you look like on the outside. It was all about Rags' who she was, and that who she was as a dog clicked with who Colleen was as a person, and that's what made that perfect connection. So
Also, our publisher, again, even when she was saved by the roadrunner from the rattlesnake, he didn't want any violence in this children's book. So, and neither did we. I mean, we didn't want to concentrate on that. It's a happy story. There were definitely challenges, but they weren't threatening, or the
But
threatening part
we also
wasn't.
wanted to convey you can do a random act of kindness. I mean, that is something that you can help somebody when they're in a tough situation, and you know the Roadrunner did that, but was on to other things.
The roadrunner had other plans.
Had to keep running down that road.
It's a whole nother book.
Yeah.
Other
seriously.
questions?
What's next?
Oh, we've always talked about Rags' story being
The next step of her journey.
her journey, but you know what? Right now we're just enjoying this part.
And it's
So-
been an outreach for us, really. It has sort of been a labor of love to go into these schools, to read the story, to bring a smile to these kids' faces, and that's pretty
I have-
much
I
what
have an
we've
idea
been
for another
concentrating
book.
on.
I bet every pet owner out here would be happy to commission you to write a story about their pet.
There you go.
And that, I mean, it is true when we're at a Barnes & Noble or doing a book signing, the adults that come up to us, I mean, I have had some of the best conversations with people. I mean, dog lovers just have this,
Great.
you know,
Camaraderie.
It's an
it's
automatic
unspoken, but
bridge.
just like, and then they want to tell you about their dog and their, but it's very cute because usually it ends up a more personal story than just about the dog, so.
Sure. We've got just a few minutes left. I know you've done a lot of work in the schools. Tell us a little bit about that. When you go into a school, how do you do that? Do you bring Rags with you?
If Rags
bring
is
Sarah
allowed to
with you?
come, if Sarah's allowed to come, the more the merrier we
What's
feel.
been your experience in the schools?
It's been wonderful. I mean, we have read to children as young as 3 years old. And you would think that they are captivated. They sit down quietly and they listen to every word. And we've read to children as old as 5th and 6th grade. So our experience has been really good. I don't even know where to begin. Sometimes it's just we read the book and we have a question-answer period. Sometimes we go in and Sarah draws animals. Sometimes we have little writing assignments that we have done that we could do a writing segment, like a classroom project with an objective with the children. It's really dependent on how much time the elementary or preschool teacher wants us to spend, and and what kind of curriculum they have for that day. So if you know of any teachers or preschool teachers who would like to have us come in, we are available. We really enjoy doing that.
And we have done things, as we mentioned before, it was with a couple of different organizations, one of which was an organization called Perspectives, which deals with underserved youth, and that was the program I was telling you, where they developed a 6-week summer curriculum around the book, and so Regs and Patty and I would come in at different times depending on what they were doing, and that was really fun. And then we've also done things with
The Women's Assistance League, we worked with them. That was really gratifying. That was almost immediately after the book was published. And we read to 2 of their classes, and all of the students got a copy of the book. So that was our first foray into the classroom.
So that's kind of our goal going forward too, is to try to keep doing the educational piece of it, as well as, meeting with adults like this, but, and then trying to find classrooms that may not have the opportunity to own a book like this, and, see how we can get a copy of the book to them, so.
And the book has been read from California to Boston. I mean, we've pretty much gone hither and yon reading the book in different classrooms. And of course, Texas. We did do a Texas sweep. Regs, unfortunately, could not accompany us on that visit, but it was very fun to go back to the place of origin and visit the TCU campus and read at their elementary school on site. And several other schools in the area.
Great. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
It's our pleasure.
Best of luck with your book,
Thank you.
Thank you.
and congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. We will be here next month in October, but it's going to be the 3rd Saturday of the month because we have a show here the 2nd Saturday. So it's going to be the 3rd Saturday of the month. Thank you for coming.